Hello Red Case listeners, welcome back to our channel where we uncover chilling true crime stories from around the world. We hope you're safe, healthy, and far away from danger, because today's case will take us deep into the mind of a man who turned an innocent chessboard into a symbol of murder. A man whose goal was not wealth, fame, or power, but something far more twisted. He wanted to kill for the sake of killing, and he wanted to do it 64 times, one murder for every square on a chessboard. This is the story of Alexander Pichushkin, also known as the Chessboard Killer. Bittsa Park, Moscow, peaceful, vast, filled with trees, and known for its quiet walking paths. To many, it was a place of escape, but to others, it became a place of no return. In the early 2000s, people started to disappear, men, women, the elderly. Their bodies were found days or weeks later, beaten, broken. Sometimes with a bottle lodged in their skull, sometimes with a hammer blow that shattered their final thoughts, and always left in Bittsa Park. The city whispered of a killer. Police said the deaths were unrelated. They were wrong, very wrong. Behind those murders was a man with cold eyes, a calm voice, and a deadly obsession. He kept a chessboard in his apartment, and for each person he killed, he marked off one of the 64 squares. Alexander Yurievich Pichushkin was born on April 9, 1974, in Pichushkin, a town just outside Moscow. His early life. Quiet, normal, some might say, but behind his childhood eyes was a growing storm. When Alexander was 4, he fell off a swing, a heavy metal swing that struck him square in the forehead. The blow damaged his frontal lobe, the part of the brain that controls impulse, judgment, and aggression. After that, something in him changed. He became more aggressive, easily angered. He didn't fit in at school. He was bullied, and as often happens with children like Alexander, the cruelty of others pushed him further into isolation. His mother noticed these changes and, fearing he would get lost in the cracks, pulled him out of public school. She enrolled him in a special school for children with learning difficulties. But this change only reinforced his feeling of being different. By the time he was a teenager, Alexander had found something that gave him control: chess. He would visit his grandfather regularly, who taught him the game. They would play for hours, and it wasn't long before Alexander became dangerously good, not just good at chess, but obsessed. He saw the chessboard as a world of total control. There were rules, structure, power, and most importantly, victory over an opponent. But when his grandfather passed away, Alexander's emotional anchor was gone. He spiraled again, this time not into tears or grief, but into dark fantasies. He began filming himself threatening children on the streets. He didn't hurt them yet, but the rage was building. It was boiling beneath the surface, and soon, he would find a way to release it. The first murder happened in 1992. The victim, his classmate, his friend, Mikhail Odichuk. The two were close. But one day, Pichushkin invited Mikhail to Bittsa Park. He told him they were going to honor the memory of his dead dog. It was a lie. When they reached a secluded part of the park, Alexander suddenly turned on Mikhail. He pushed him into a saw pit and held him down until he drowned. Why? Because Mikhail had decided to apply to a university, to move on with life, and Pichushkin felt abandoned. This was the beginning, but not the end. The murder went unsolved, and with that success, Alexander tasted power, and like any addict, he wanted more. After that first kill, Alexander stopped. For almost a decade, he drifted, worked odd jobs, drank heavily, and watched others live the lives he felt denied. It made him bitter, jealous, explosive. In his mind, the world owed him something, and he was going to take it, one victim at a time. Then came 2001, and with it, an explosion of death. Between 2001 and 2006, bodies began appearing all over Bittsa Park. The method, simple, brutal, efficient. He would lure people, often homeless men, alcoholics, or the elderly, into the park with offers of vodka. They would drink together, laugh, talk. Then, when their guard was down, he would pull out a hammer and smash their skulls. Sometimes he'd push them into wells, other times he'd drive pieces of broken vodka bottles into their wounds to make sure they never got up again. And after each kill, He would mark a square on his chessboard. One more piece, one more victory. He believed he was in a game against the world, and he wanted all 64 squares filled. When the bodies kept showing up in Bittsa Park, the public whispered in fear, but the police, they insisted these were isolated incidents, unrelated, coincidence. But how many coincidences does it take before you accept there's a pattern? Between 2001 and 2005, at least 30 people had died in or near the park. Almost all of them were beaten. Almost all of them had bottles or metal objects forced into their skulls, and all of them had a connection to Alexander Pichushkin. But back then, he wasn't a suspect. To many, he was just a loner with a drinking problem. You see, Pichushkin was smart. He targeted people society overlooked: the homeless, alcoholics, pensioners, the vulnerable. He offered vodka, shared a toast, and struck when they trusted him most. For years, his pattern went unnoticed until he made a mistake. Her name was Marina Moskaliova, a 36-year-old woman and a single mother. On June 14, 2006, she left home for a date. She never came back. Her son, worried sick, reported her missing. He also told the police about a note Marina had left behind, a note with the name Alexander Pichushkin and a phone number. For the first time, there was a direct link. Police brought Alexander in for questioning. He didn't resist. He didn't deny. In fact, he confessed, openly, proudly, not to one murder, not to 10. He confessed to 61 killings, and then he said, "If I hadn't been caught, I would have killed the full 64. One for each square on the chessboard." During the interrogation, Pichushkin's demeanor was eerie. He was calm, cold, even amused. He described the murders in detail, smiling as he recalled each one, laughing as he recounted how victims begged for mercy. To the investigators, it was unlike anything they'd seen. He told them, "Doing one murder, it's like falling in love for the first time. You never forget it. But after a while, it becomes a routine." He referred to his victims as pieces. He saw himself as the player, the king, moving across the board, taking lives like pawns. When police raided his apartment, they found his chessboard laid out neatly on a small table. On it were 61 squares marked with pen. Each one represented a life taken, each one a human being. He told investigators he hoped to fill the entire board. It wasn't about rage. It wasn't even about power anymore. It was about completion, finishing the game. In September 2007, Alexander Pichushkin stood trial. The court charged him with 49 murders and 3 attempted murders. Only 49 could be proven. The rest remained officially unconfirmed. Despite his chilling confessions, at the trial, families of the victims sat in tears. Some cried, some stared blankly, some just wanted to understand why. But Pichushkin offered no remorse. He looked around the courtroom with cold eyes. He often smirked. He spoke clearly, explaining how he killed. The jury deliberated for hours, but there was no doubt. He was found guilty on all counts. The judge sentenced him to life imprisonment, with the first 15 years in solitary confinement. And even then, Pichushkin asked, "Why only 49? I killed more." Today, Alexander Pichushkin sits inside a high-security prison in Russia, solitary, silent, but far from forgotten. He has been described as one of the most terrifying serial killers in Russian history. Some even believe he would have surpassed Andrei Chikatilo, another notorious Russian killer, had he not been caught. He continues to claim he's killed more than 60 people, and that the real number might be even higher. What makes Pichushkin's case so disturbing isn't just the number of victims, it's the lack of motive. There was no revenge, no passion, no need, just desire. He killed because he wanted to, because he felt powerful, because he felt alive. He didn't see people, he saw moves, pieces on a board, numbers to track. He's a chilling reminder of what happens when humanity is erased, when a mind becomes consumed by the thrill of control, and life is reduced to a game. Thank you for joining us tonight on Red Case. The story of Alexander Pichushkin is one that haunts the darkest corners of modern criminal history. It forces us to ask the hardest questions. How many more would he have killed? What makes a man lose all empathy? And how many killers walk among us, hidden in plain sight? Until it's too late? If this story moved you, please like, comment, and subscribe. Stay aware, stay safe, and never let your guard down, because not every killer looks like one. This was the case of Alexander Pichushkin, the chessboard killer. Until next time.